All right, back on track. Let's see if we can keep things moving here. I realize that I probably am a little long on my setup here. Let's take a look at what we got going on. All right, so yeah, we just went past our mash out, so we are going to turn everything off and run the last little bit through the system. Alrighty. All right. Now we're just going to let that sit a little bit. All right. Yeah, it looks like we got some stuff that we had some issues with. We'll go all cameras. Give this a shot. I wonder if this is working. All right. We'll continue to let that sit. I had some issues with my stream, but I think I got it back online again. Hopefully we did. All right. All right, let's get some music back on in my headphones. There we go. All right, little dance party. Regroup. Had some streaming issues. Feel like we might be back on track though. This is Maplewood, Minnesota for those of you joining. This is my garage. This is my fake beer company, Belch Brewing, that I just piggybacked off my friend Tom's clothing apparel company that he called Belch. Stole all of his logos. Thank you, Tom Darrell. All right. Right now we are brewing a cream ale. I call it the Yellow Fizzy Beer. It's good for lawn mowing, hot days, summer afternoons, summer mornings, summer evenings. Doing 10 gallons of it today. Right now we just got done with the mash. We're just kind of letting it settle right now. Then we're going to start just transferring that over to my boil kettle. While I'm doing that, I'd like to have a pitcher to capture some stuff. And I do believe my pitcher might actually be in the house. So I might go get that. Let's see if I can. Doing a quick scan out here in my garage for it. Yeah, I think it's in the garage. I'll be right back, folks. You can still hear me out there. I just found my pitcher. My children are using it for farming. So, pass. Take a picture back. All right, back in the saddle here. All right. Okay. Let's make sure things are closed on all this stuff here. Get our kettles closed. Got that going there. I'm going to grab this pitcher because a lot of stuff actually will end up down. And so we're just going to grab that. And then we're going to let this drain anything that might be in the tube there. All right. Good there. All right. Now let's just go ahead and we're going to start moving stuff over. Make sure that's closed. Make sure that's closed. We're going to open up my valve down here. And I guess what I could do is grab a camera and give you guys a peek at what we are looking at here. All right, so taking a look at my valves that I have down here. I've got in the back here, this is the mash tun. Mash tun's going to come into this valve. It's going to be in here. We're going to make sure this is closed because we're not going directly in there. We're going to come up through here. And then last but not least, over off camera here, I'm gonna come up into the bottom of my kettle. And then at this point, I'm gonna come back over to my BCS program, have everything be stopped now. And let's see if we can finally get that old Alexa to work here. All right, let's see. Alexa, turn on work pump.
Okay.
Hey, look at that. I can hear it running. And if we come over to our overhead, all right, start raising stuff up into it. I wonder I've got that on the wrong one here. And you can start to see we've got some of our first runnings coming up into the bottom there. All right, so we'll go ahead and let that just kind of fill up. While that's doing that, I am going to jump over and take care of a couple of things quick. All right. Looking like beer in there. All right, so as that's transferring, I am going to go ahead and change up how I'm actually pushing it in. Pushing it up from the very bottom sometimes really stresses my pumps. So I'm going to pop down here on the ground and actually say, Alexa, stop work pump.
There's no active work pump. Did you mean to start one?
Alexa doesn't work. Alexa, stop work pump. Oh, Alexa. Alrighty. We are back and rolling. Alright, getting caught up on some of my comments here. You see Tom Darrow has popped in for just a second. Tom, I am making a cream ale. And tell you what, I'll take a look at the recipe right now with everybody. Let me jump over to the program. So this is a cream ale. It's going to come in about 5% ABV. I call this kind of my lawn mowing beer. This is my beer in the afternoon, drink a beer in the evening, drink a beer in the morning if it's permittable because you're not at work. Doing a different yeast. I can hear that my pump is starting to say, hey, I'm done. So I'm going to shut a valve there and let it continue to go down. But now that we've kind of run through all of the pump of the beer, so basically what I've just done is I'm transferring my wort from here over to my boil kettle. And what I'm also going to do at this point is I'll bring up my BCS here. So here we can see that I've got my temperatures here. I'm going to move over to the boil and just start the process that I call transferring wort. And now that I've actually got wort in there, I'm going to go ahead and click to say bring this to a boil. It's going to take me a little bit longer to capture all of my wort in there, but I can start that process. Last but not least, I am also going to grab a little sample of my wort so that way I can get my gravity reading off of that. And we will just put this in the refrigerator just to cool it down a little bit, makes it easier to take a temperature reading on there. All right, so at this point we can come down here and see that the boil, it's going to try and raise the temperature up to a certain temperature, and then we're going to move actually into the boil phase. All right, let's bring all the cameras back up. Perfect. All right, so for those of you who are just joining me, this is my brewing setup. I'm in my garage. I use a single tier brewing structure, which you can see here. Basically, I've got a tank over here that's got hot water in it. It is called a Herms setup. So basically, I have a coil, a heat exchanger inside of this. And if you can see on the top view, you can start to see the coil that's in there. What that allows me to do is have my mash tun, which is where your grains are. You can see the grains in there at this point. I've already done the mash this morning, but basically the wort, the water, is going to go down through the mash tun, go through the grain bed, pulling sugars off, and the temperature at 151, 152 degrees is optimal at pulling all the sugar off of the grain. It's going to pull all of that sugar and water down to the bottom down here in the pump section. It's going to then pump it up into this heat exchanger, so it's running through this coil that is inside the hot water tank. And just by having the surface area of the hot water against that stainless steel coil, it's going to raise the temperature of the liquid going through there to the 152, and it's all being controlled by my computer, which I've got over here. It's pretty cool. Works out pretty slick. That wasn't the greatest definition of what's going on, but that's what I got going on. All right, let's take a peek here. I'm going to use my handy dandy pitcher to come down and actually start to capture a little bit more of what I've got in. All right. Let that fill. There's always just enough stuff in the bottom here to capture. You don't want to give up on it. I'm gonna do that. And we'll turn that off for a second. So you can see how much more I've got in there. Just gonna pour that in over the top. And I forgot something. We were talking this morning about how my electrical setup in this thing is incredibly crazy, and I don't know how any of it really works. I will show you what's inside the box. So you can see all this wiring. I'm having some real issues with my box, and I've only got one actual heating element working right now. So I have to kind of keep switching stuff around. So I'm going to do that right now. Let's shut this real quick. Oh, wrong screwdriver. All right, let's get down here and unplug that one. It's so far back. Grab this one and plug this one in. If anybody's going up mountain biking at Copper Harbor or the Upper Peninsula, let me know. I'd love you to bring my brew rig up there, because that's where I got my guy that built it for me. He lives up there. I've been just kind of keeping it open to keep it giving some air. All right. So there we are. All right, got that going. Back to the pitcher. I think there's more work to be got. Let's take a look. Yeah, there's still some coming down. And let's go ahead and open that up. It's always just kind of slowly dripping down through the process there. It looks like it's starting to finally kind of run out. Do a little shake, shake, shake. All right, back up. Look at that. A bit more. Put that in there. And let me go back over to my brewing system here. All right, so now if I actually turn the boil element on, I'm going to stop that. And let's get that screen back up for everybody. All right, so this is what we're looking at here on my control panel. Is you can see that now we've got our temperature coming up at 203 degrees. That's close to boiling for my system. Probably actually will be boiling at that point. So when I get to 203 degrees, right now it's at 158, then it's going to move from bring to the boil to the actual boil process. And once we hit that point, that's when I'm going to want to add my first hops. And after those hops are added, then I've got a little bit of time for the next part to kind of go in. All right. Back on. Exciting stuff about home brewing, let me tell you. So, other things I've got ready to go here. I am going to be taking a reading of that bit of, where did that go? There it is. Try and get set up over here on the side so you guys can watch this all exciting part of brewing. Let's take a look, see how that looks. Close. All right. So I'm going to go back over to my fridge, grab my little sample. So I took a sample of the wort that came off the beer, right? And what I'm going to do now is use a refractometer. It's a digital refractometer. And I'm just going to put a little bit of distilled water on there. Take a reading. It should come in at 0. Came at 0.1, but it's distilled water, so I can 0 it out. And I'll just get a little bit of tissue paper here. And we'll get that cleaned off there. All right. So now what I can do is take my little bit of sample here, and I'm just going to pour just a little bit on top of there. And we'll go ahead and take a reading. And it's 9.9. I'm going to let that sit for just a moment, let the air temperature kind of mingle a little bit. Maybe charge my cell phone while I'm doing that. You can take hydrometer readings, which is basically a glass device that you drop into the solution, then it kind of bobs up and down, but basically it's taking a reading as to how much sugar to water is in that into the actual solution. All right, let's take a second reading here. I got 9.9. I'm at 10.3. We're going to continue to kind of monitor that for just a little bit more. Hey, look at that. You can see my shoes. All right. All right, let's take a look at what we're looking at as far as the temperature goes on our boil. Oh, got that set up wrong. There we go. So we're up to 168 degrees in the boil. And if we take a look at our overhead camera, you can see that there's all of our spent grain down in there. I'm going to go ahead and just pull my little line lock out there. This is what disperses it. I'm going to put that in my dirty bucket. But you know what? I can't but help but wonder, is there potential for just a little bit more? A little more wort in the bottom here? Let's just take one last crack at getting a little bit more. Oh yeah, there's one last splash. I think that's all she wrote though. That's all she wrote. We're talking about a tiny amount of beer now, but put it in there. And while we haven't started our boil yet, actually inside of my boil kettle I have markings that indicate how much beer is in there. And so 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. I'm going to call this probably about 11.5 gallons. And if we take a look at my Beersmith program and I go over to my session readings, you can see here that my estimated pre-boil volume was 12.08. So I didn't quite hit that. So I think I will add just a little bit of water to top it off. You're going to take a little bit of a hit on your efficiency there, but let's just go ahead. All right. Just going to bring that up to 12. And there she is. Sorry, I didn't let you watch that. Could have seen my little hose. Ooh, exciting. Okay. Put that back on there. Oh, it smells so good. It does smell good. I don't know. Some people don't like that smell, but I think it's awesome. So, for my folks that are watching, I talked about this a little bit earlier on, but last year in March and April, and then of course further on, when COVID was really starting to ravage the nation and we were all pretty much shuttering in place, I kind of took to homebrewing as a way to just kind of switch my mind to something else. And because I usually like to invite people over to brew, not being able to do that, I started doing the live stream thing. And I started with my cell phone, and I did a live stream. And then I started learning about like people that stream to Twitch and other things, and I started discovering this program called OBS, which is a free software. Installed that on my computer, started bringing my computer out to the garage, and then I started just hooking up webcams. So I've got a cheap, inexpensive knockoff GoPro. I've got a webcam. I've got another webcam here. I've got my webcam that's on my little tripod. You know, these are inexpensive webcams, but you can plug them all in and they're all just connected via long USB cables to my computer. Got my headphones on, my microphone. It's all running through this software that you can then also have like backgrounds. And again, you can change, you know, I found out how to make a ticker that goes along the bottom. Just kind of nerd stuff for sure. But I don't know, something fun to mess around with. And then you can also bring in other things like temperature gauges. So we're up to 172 degrees. We might as well just speed the process along by keeping the cover on the top there. And then I can also show like my recipe, and I've got information about my beer. And let's just do one final reading. All right, 10.6. 10.6. All right, so 10.6 is what's called bricks, but my program, I like to switch it over to the actual thing. So you can say 10.6 bricks is 1.041 specific gravity. So we're going to go ahead and type in 1.041. And here, oh, my daughter has joined me in the garage. She's saying hello. All right, so then we can put in that. We can take our measured pre-boil volume of 11.5. Oh, we bumped it up here. All right. So my measured efficiency is 69.8%, which is not the greatest. 5.4 pH. All right. So that's my brew house efficiency. My estimated mash efficiency is 74.5. Let's see what that does if I change that. It shouldn't make a difference. All right. Now we're basically on track here. Exciting stuff. I'm listening to music. All right, let's take a look back at our temperature. 183, steadily rising. You can even take a look at my brewery control system, and you can see that the boil kettle is full on green. Normally this will blink on and off as the kettle turns on and off, but because it's just trying to max out the temperature right now to get this thing up to the boil temperature, it's just going to stay on the entire time. All right, let's do a little cleaning of the old bricks here. Refractometer. Shout out to El Jonso. Hope he's enjoying his family today. All right. Boom, boom, boom. All right. Just jumped on the YouTube channel here because the comments were not going through to OBS. I will have to figure that out later. But for anybody that's still on the YouTube channel, I am brewing a cream ale, kind of a afternoon crusher, a bit of a lawn mowing beer, come home from work, have a brew. I don't come home, but leave my room from work and have a beer. You know, sit on the porch in the evening, have a beer. All of those things for a good purpose of having a beer there. So that's what we're brewing. Tell you what, for those of you that are just joining, I'll even pull up the recipe, take a peek at that. All right, so this is a bit of a mixed bag. These are basically ingredients that I just had about. So I'm using standard 2-row malt from a raw malting company. They're actually based right here in Minnesota in Shakopee. So getting the grains from a local supplier, which is pretty cool. I buy 50-pound bags of it to save money, but that's what goes into the majority of my beers. So 9 pounds of that. Because this is a little bit of a cream ale, Pilsner 2-row from Germany is a common ingredient, as is flaked corn. So again, this is a untraditional beer in that we use adjuncts. Adjuncts are anything that you put into beer that is not barley, it's not yeast, it's not water, and it's not hops. So I'm putting corn in here, I'm putting I'm putting corn in here. That makes it an adjunct style beer. But all these other things like your malts and things like that are pretty standard beer. This is a new yeast that I'm using. This is called Lutra Kavik. Oh, one moment. One moment. That was really loud in my ears. There was a beeping noise alerting me that my beer is now up to temperature. It's starting to get into that point where it's going to start boiling. Okay, and we're going to let it just go a little bit longer here until we actually get to the and I'm going to pause the brewing. We're just going to let this start to boil. You can really let me get the overhead camera going here. We'll start to see this, and then I'm also going to have to turn on a fan in here. One of the things that I've built into my home brewing setup is, if we look up in the ceiling, oh, this camera's not the greatest here. Over there, you can see this is my exhaust hood, just made out of like plastic, but basically there's a big fan up there that exhausts out to the side of my yard. So my neighborhood smells like a brewery when I'm making beer. But I'll get that turned on as we start to get boiling. All right, you can start to see the boil is happening because you can see the bubbles coming up. Okay, I'd say we're boiling now, so I'm going to move back over and resume the boil. All right, so we're going to boil this beer for 60 minutes today. I'm going to go ahead and turn on that fan right now. Hopefully it doesn't get too loud. it goes. Whoop, 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 whoop. All right. All right, we've got our hops here. We've got 1 ounce that we're going to put in right now at the very beginning of the boil. These are what we call your bittering hops. They just add a little bit of bitterness. 1 ounce is not a ton, and I'm using Cascade hops, which are also not a super bitter hop. That said, my first choice would have been Northern Brewer hops for this particular beer, but I didn't have any. So Cascade is my substitute that I'm going to go with. And with 1 ounce, I'm just going to put them right in. When I'm using beers that are full of lots of hops, I'll use a hop screen. This just goes down inside of the actual boil kettle. And this can help keep a lot of the hop stuff out of the beer as far as when you start to put it into your fermenter, because you don't necessarily want all of that, what they call trub, to go into your beer. You kind of want to keep that out. But with 1 ounce, I'm just going to keep clean for today. Leave that over here. We'll be able to siphon this out a different method. So, oh, we got to show that. Let's get up on the overhead here. Here it goes. We're making beer. We're making beer. Woo! All right. We're making beer. All right. Now, I am going to set a timer that I've got, a manual, old school timer. I don't know if anybody ever spent any time in a dark room. Yeah, I've got computers, but I still like just turning this thing on. We'll get that going for 30 minutes. That's going to add our next hop edition. That's my old school throwback to my high school and college days of spending time in the dark room. Sets Magoo, gotta have the Lutra. Yes. The Lutra is a crazy yeast. It's a Scandinavian or Norway or somewhere over in that area yeast. But this thing is just like, this is how nerdy you can get about beer. This thing is intense. This beer will go from sugar water to being alcohol in like 2 days. That's unheard of in my mind. Most of the time I'm talking a week, to make beer. This thing is just going to start chomp on my beer and just eating it up. Now, it's also just, I'll show you this. Let's see, mobile camera. There's my yeast. It's on a little stir plate, so it's just mixing with some other wort right now. You can see how messy my workshop is on the other side of the curtain here. But yeah, it's on a little stir plate that just stirs a stir bar in there to keep circulating and creating that yeast. So it's getting ready to go. And when we pitch that stuff in there, it's just going to go berserker. It's going to be awesome. You ever hear of a beer that's bubbling? It goes boop, 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 as the oxygen comes off. This thing's going to be like, can't wait. I really can't. I see Ryan Lang also commented about making a non-alcoholic beer. That's a great question. I'm in a couple of Facebook groups, Ryan, that are dedicated non-alcoholic. I've got my cooler right over here full of non-alcoholic beer. I do not like to drink beer while I'm brewing. I find that you get drunk brewing, game over. You make bad decisions. You forget to hook up hoses. You forget to take readings. It just doesn't mix. You gotta wait till the end to have a alcoholic beer. So non-alcoholic beer for brew days is a pretty good idea. Maybe it might just crack one here in a little bit. Non-alcoholic beer, the stuff that you buy at the store is not your dad's non-alcoholic beer. They're using like all kinds of crazy technology to create those beers. Things that I don't even really completely understand, and obviously I don't have access to from a monetary standpoint. So a lot of that beer is pretty cool, the technology they're going into. What I have read about non-alcoholic beers that you can make at home is you basically choose the malt that goes into your beer to be things that actually don't convert a lot of sugar, so you can get flavor, but you don't get the sugar, and the sugar is what the yeast is going to eat to create alcohol. So if there's not a lot of sugar content in your wort and you put the yeast in there, the yeast kind of eats up whatever it can to create the beer, but it doesn't actually get to anything above that, you know, whatever, 0.5% below whatever alcohol. That said, I have not chosen to stop drinking beer full time for any kind of like personal reasons. I've chosen to cut back for health reasons. So I also think I could be making some beers that would be like what you really consider to be even lower than a session beer, like 1 to 2% alcohol by volume, where I think I can drink those and not feel sluggish, or, you know, I can drink this beer and not feel sluggish. But you get what I'm saying. So I could be trying to do some of those, just only so much time in the day. All right, let's take a look at that boil up close. We'll see how it's actually working. All right, so watch the boil. Okay, now watch what happens. See how it just stopped right there? 1001, 1002, okay? So what I'm doing here is called a duty cycle. A duty cycle basically turns the boil on and off. My system boils so much that if I run it full bore, I actually burn off a ton of beer. It's almost too much of a boil. So I have it doing on-off cycles. Brings it to a boil, turns off. Brings it to a boil, turns off. We can take a look at what the temperature reading is, but temperature at this temp is pretty hard to... Oh, hold on. Scroll up. Yeah, it's 209 degrees, it says. I don't know, what is the temperature of something boiling? 212? Is that what they... Is that the actual number? All right. It's warming up in here, and now that the boil is going, I should have probably started this a while ago, but I'm going to grab my trusty stool here, set that down in there, go ahead and take this, that back there, grab my towel, put that over top of there, and jeez, I came shooting off there. Grab my pail. Towel's just there to catch any grains that don't make it into the bucket. Wish I knew a farm to get my grains to. I don't. But you kind of see the grains that we're dealing with there. Better scoop, bigger one. I find live streaming to be similar to drinking. You get distracted. Ideally, you do this right away, and then you get some water going in here. That way nothing gets sticky. I think we'll be all right, though. We'll be running cleaner through everything at the very end. Hi, Coraline.
Get all your mess stuff out.
Yeah, we're getting the mess out. Thanks for checking in on me. Ah, the days of having summer break. Good old Dollar Tree squeegee. Just try and get as much as I can out of here. That's about all she wrote. Angela Lansbury. On that. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and take this and put it over here. All right. So we've got a bit of that out of there, but it's not necessarily entirely clean yet. See, I've got my false bottom in here. Let's talk a little bit about what a false bottom is. So a false bottom is a piece of stainless steel that has hundreds of small perforated little holes in it. And so when you think of all that grain that was just inside of this kettle, all of that grain is sitting on top of this. Now we don't want the grain to actually go down to the bottom through the actual drain in the bottom of my kettle. My kettle's drilled with a hole in the bottom that drains out. I want that to sit on top of here because I don't want the whole system to get clogged, my pumps to get clogged. So this false bottom keeps all the grain from going down. So just the water that's rinsing the sugars, which is creating the wort, is going to go down. Below that I even have a second smaller little piece that adds, it's just one more level. Might be hard to see all the way down in there from this view, but there is some kind of like grit that will stay in there because there is going to always be a fine kind of stuff that will go through. But as that usually cycles through, it will get compacted into the grains and not be on there. All right, I'm going to just go ahead and take this and bring it up here and set it for now. I'll come back and clean that at a later, just so I'm not off camera the entire time. All right, so inside of here, I do have a bit more of just kind of crud. Where did I put? I left my scoop over here. Got a little bit in there. Shouldn't be too problematic. I will say, Matt Campbell, if you're still out there watching, it doesn't taste all that great as you go along. That said, you know, I hear people that'll like eat a little bit of the or taste a little bit of the grains. The grains shouldn't actually be sweet at all. They should be extremely bland at the end because you've pulled all the sugar. You know, the wort doesn't necessarily taste all that great. I've definitely had samples and things like that. But I am talking about, we were talking earlier about the yeast I'm using as being this kind of newer yeast, that's new to me anyway. And it's going to eat through this beer, this wort really quick. I'll probably be having a sample within a couple of days. It'll be uncarbonated, but I'll take a sample in a couple of days to drink it. And you may be joking, Matt Campbell, but I did add salt to this beer. That was part of the water chemistry in that I have a water report that I sent off to have my water analyzed, and it'll tell me all of the different things like salt that I have in my water, and then I can actually calibrate my water to match specific water profiles that I want to. Certain beers do better with soft water, certain beers do better with hard water, so you can adjust by using things like calcium chloride, gypsum, even table salts to actually match a specific profile that you're going for. This profile, pretty basic. I didn't actually adjust much. My beer, my brewing water, which is just my tap water that I use here in Maplewood, is actually a pretty even-keeled water, so I didn't have to put a lot in there. But if I'm making like a hazy, juicy IPA, I might want to have a really soft water to give me a little bit more of that kind of creamy kind of mouth feel. I know that sounds kind of nerdish, but it is what it is. Then I will add a fair amount of additives to the water. All right, this is my secret special thing here. For anybody that has children, it's a diaper sprayer. This thing is awesome. I spent enough time blasting poopy diapers, cloth diapers in my life that this is not the exact one that I blasted poop diapers with. But these things have great pressure, and boom, you can be rinsing stuff down, getting all the junk off the sides here a little bit, right? Close that. What I'm going to do here is just kind of Ooh, got myself. Just rinse it quick. Put that back. And I'm going to grab my bucket that I use here. And use this first. 'All right, that's flowing nicely. Dump that in the bucket here. Just gonna hook this up right on here. Minutes on the timer before our next hops need to go in. Other than that, we're just having a good old boil over there. All right, I got most of the little bit of grains that are in there out of there. What I'm going to do is just grab my extra towel here, just drop it in there, just to get those last bit of grains out. Like that. Not really much to speak of. Last little bit out of that. All right. So now the pumps are not necessarily being used right now for anything, and I've got a lot of hot water just hanging out over here in my hot liquor tank. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and just start pushing some water from this kettle over to here. And so I'll show you. All right, crazy camera. All right, so I've got a valve here that I'm going to open up. It's going to push water down into here, and then it's going to go into my other pump. Now this other pump just goes up and drops water up and over the top. So I'm going to make sure this is closed for now. We're just going to add some water, and let's try for broke with Alexa again. Let's see if it does it. Alexa, turn on water pump.
Okay.
Hey, it finally worked. Alexa's running the brew rig today. All right, so we're just going to put in some water here. And we're just going to do a little bit. Alexa, turn off water pump.
Okay.
All right. So now that I've just got some water in there, I'm going to have it run and cycle through my heat exchanger coil, because remember, back in the day we had hot sticky wort sugar water running through that. So at this point, I'm back down by my pumps, and I'm going to make sure that they are all turned into the right position. So that one's going to be on. This one's going to be on. That one is on. That one is on. But I'm going to put back on my nozzle so that the water doesn't just come shooting out of here and hits here and just splashes everywhere. That is probably one thing that I have done more than I care to admit. And we're going to say, Alexa, turn on work pump.
Okay.
And here it comes. You can see that, but it went from clear to being a little bit brown in there, not a lot. We're just going to let that run. We'll keep this nice and hot with the cover on. Listen a little slightly stupid on Spotify. Yeah, my brother-in-law John gave us the Alexa for the household. Kids love listening to music on it. I use mine in the garage for making beer. I can basically turn on my hot liquor tank. I can turn on my boil kettle. All these different processes, and remind me what I'm actually doing. I've even typed them out and put them on there so I know what I actually have. I got beers on tap, Mr. Norbaum. And this is pretty cool. My chat thing started working inside my OBS platform. I'll have to get Bronson's channel to stream his Twitch playing. I guarantee he's got a Twitch channel. Yeah, let's take a look. Let's take a look at the beer fridge today. Let's see. I got 3 taps in the beer fridge. Got some Mountain Dew, some water, a lot of non-alcoholic beer, but I do have 3. I'm a little close there. 3 kegs of beer on tap right now. So I've got 2 IPAs and a vanilla Russian Imperial Stout that clocks in at about 10%. And for Ryan Lang, I've even got a couple of these non-alcoholic IPAs, which I actually think is pretty good for a change of pace kind of beer. But if you want a non-alcoholic, crush it in the summer, Penn's Best, $2.99 a 6-pack. That's where it's at. All right, so let's take a look here. That's looking pretty good. I think I might drain that in a second. And when we get to about the halfway point on the boil, which is coming up in just a minute, we'll have to start setting up the chill plate, because you can't put living yeast into scalding hot beer, or it's not beer yet, wort. You know, what you're going to do is kill off your yeast instantly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this 200 degree plus beer and we're going to drop it down to about 65, 70 degrees, like extremely quick, with what's called a plate chiller. And we'll talk about the plate chiller in a little bit. But I'm just going to see if this is long enough. Really. I think it might be. So, you've been seeing me drain stuff into buckets. It's kind of a pain because then you got to carry the buckets outside. One thing that I have set up is, because I don't have a floor drain in here, let's see if I can shine this back in. It's hiding back there, but I've got a piece of PVC that I pushed out into the yard, and I've got a tube connected to it that I can hook up like this, and then I can attach this, hard to view, attach to another spot, and then drain stuff right into the side of my yard. I'm sure the neighbors love that. Alexa, turn off work pump.
Okay.
Well, 311. I don't care. They're the Beatles of rap rock, people. All right. As you can maybe hear, that annoying buzzer means it's time to add some more hops. So, just tear this one out. This is a Czech hop. You can see that. So, go ahead and sprinkle these in as well. Adding hops at different times during the boil actually does different things to the hops. For a lot of beers that would be considered to be a traditional IPA, where you drink that first sip and you go, ooh, that's got some bitterness to it, right? Like that's kind of what we grew up understanding an IPA was. They do that by putting a lot of hops that are specifically grown to give that bitterness, and you can look at charts of hops online to see. I've even got a big poster on my wall in my office that show the different spectrum of hops. But you put a lot of those in at the very beginning so that the boil has a chance to break them down and kind of create that bitterness in your beer. And think about, like, after that period, as you add hops further into the boil process, you're going to kind of move away from that bitterness at the front of the beer. Anybody that's had these hazy, juicy IPAs, they're cloudy, and they don't even have like a bitterness. Some of them taste kind of like a juice, right? These beers, they don't even put hops in during the actual boil process. They will let the boil completely end, and then they do what's called the whirlpool, where they start spinning the beer in there, and they actually drop the temperature to about like 160 degrees. So now the temperature is lower. Then they'll add like a bunch of hops, and there's specific hops that have a lot of tropical notes. So even when you smell the hop right out of the bag, you can smell pineapple and mango and you name the fruit. They drop them all in there, and then they just let it swirl, right? Then they put it in the fermenter, and then to come back and really give you that aroma, like so when you open the beer and you smell it, you pour it in the glass, you smell it, oh, it smells so good. It smells really fruity. Those are hops that they're actually adding into, That doesn't fit over the top of that. Those are beers that they're actually adding into their fermenter. So I've got my fermenter in my refrigerator over here, but obviously on the big industry they've got massive ones that you've seen at tap rooms and breweries when you've gone. Spotify's not doing a great job here. Let's put 2 songs back to back by the same band. It's supposed to be on mix. Come on now. Let's crank that up a little bit. All right, where was I? I drained everything out of here. I'm gonna grab my towel. Oops. Didn't do that. I'm gonna grab my towel again. Just come in here one more time. Get those last little bits of grain up out of there. Okay. All right, so I got a little bit of the wort out of there that was in that tubing. The tubes that are on this side have been done. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more water from my hot liquor tank. And I can always tell that I've got more water because I actually have a sight glass, and it's showing me right here that I have 11 gallons of water still. See that on there on my sight glass. Yes, I could just open the top and look inside as well. But when you're trying to measure precise amounts from, say, this to this, that can come in handy. Alexa, turn on water pump.
Okay.
At this point, I'm going to add some water in here, and I'm going to actually throw in some cleaner to start actually cleaning what I've got in here. I'll probably stop my brew day after we get the beer in the conical, because after that it's just a slogfest of... Alexa, turn off water pump. Doesn't like me. Alexa, turn off water pump. I can't do it myself.
Okay.
Alright. So now I'll grab my cleaner from under here. So here is my cleaner. I make my own cleaner. This is 1 part OxyClean, 1 part Red Devil TSP or something, get Ace Hardware. And then another part is 7th generation dish detergent. You can buy this stuff, and it's much more expensive to buy it yourself, but it's the same chemicals for the most part. It hasn't failed me yet. All right, so I'm going to take 1, 2, and let's see here, 3, 4, and 5. All right, take 5 scoops of that in there. Usually do about 1 scoop per gallon. And now what we're going to do is let this just kind of sit, but we're not actually going to run it through the pumps yet, because the pumps are still going to be used for the beer. So I'm just going to stir it up with my spoon. And I'm going to be off camera for a moment here, folks. I can make you watch this for a bit. Okay, everyone else put this on. You can look at the camera overhead angle. Look what I got. I gotta go clean that false bottom, which involves me opening the garage door. All right, I'm over here. Grab my diaper sprayer. Hit it with the water real quick. It's a nice day out today. If anybody wants to come drink my homebrew tonight, it will be on tap at St. John's School of Little Canada for a taste of summer at my kids' school. And I said I'd bring some of my homebrew, so I will have it on tap at the baseball field in Little Canada, Minnesota, starting at 6:30 p.m. There will also be professional brews, not just mine, and wine. You can message me for the details. It is a free event. If we charge money, I don't think I'd be able to bring my beer, because that's kind of illegal to sell my beer. Alright, I need to turn my air compressor on. There's no air hardly left in it, but let's see if I can get that a little bit clean. I don't really want to turn it on to cause you all to my compressor. All right. I don't know what you guys are listening to, maybe just me. But I'm listening to Girls Just Want to Have Fun by Cyndi Lauper. It's delightful. Not sure what year this song came out in, but I was looking at a list of all the songs that came out in 1985. What a banger year. I wasn't very old then, but... Alright, back at it. I'm actually gonna put my false bottom back in so it too can get a soak in my cleaning fluids. We'll just let that continue to soak. This is where my daughters would tell me that if you haven't had a chance yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the bell to be alert anytime that Scott Harrelson has new content. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. It really helps with my sponsors that I don't have. Much appreciated. Girls Just Want to Have Fun was on the album She's So Unusual. Came out in 1983. Look at that. I got a new subscriber. I got 3 new subscribers today. Thank you for hitting that subscribe button. Thank you for supporting Belch Brewing. Belch Brewing. Bikes, beer, bliss. Karate kick that like button. Wha-cha! Wha-wha! All right. Other fun gadgets that we're going to be utilizing today. Where did it go? Hope I didn't lose that. That's a fun gadget. Okay. It's somewhere. Maybe when I was knocking stuff around, I knocked it on the ground. No, I don't see it on the ground. Oh boy, there it is. This is called a tilt. This is a digital hydrometer. So I talked about using a digital refractometer. I like digital. Digital. This is going to go into my wort and yeast solution, I guess you would call it at that point. You know, is starting to become beer as the yeast start to eat the wort sugars. And it's pretty cool. It just floats on top. And based on the angle that it's actually in, it sends readings via Bluetooth to an old cell phone that I have next to my fridge that then updates my internet. And it will tell me how much beer has actually been, how much alcohol has actually been made. It's not perfect, but it's super cool. It's my favorite gadget. I have many favorite gadgets, but that is definitely one of my favorite gadgets. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our timer. We got 13 minutes left on the boil, so let's go ahead and start getting things ready to cool it down. All right, so this is a plate chiller. A plate chiller is a series of plates. One runs this way, the other runs this way. This way, this way, this way, this way, this way. Liquid goes down like this, back and forth, and then exit out another. There's also another series of plates that are in there that go exactly the opposite direction. So at one point, you're going to send boiling hot liquid into a port, and it's going to go through back and forth against all these plates. I'm then also going to hook my tap water up to another set of ports. And the tap water, which is cold, is going to go back and forth, back and forth. Now, because the beer is on one side of a metal plate, or the boiling hot wort is on one side of the plate, and the cold water is on the other, the cold water is going to pass its cold properties through the plate against the beer, cooling it down, and by the time it comes out, it's cold. It's so delightful. But it can be kind of messy, so I'm going to go find a bucket to put it in. Beer, bucket, bucket. Beer, bucket, bucket. Where are all my buckets? There's a bucket. It's got a lot of stuff in it. This is not necessarily the bucket I was thinking of, but it's going to work. Okay. All right, we'll set this in there just to capture any junk that's going to be coming out of this deal. I'm going to set it this way. All right. So over here I've got my water. I'll go ahead and bring this one down here. And on the back side here I can see that this is the water in. So squeeze that. And then on the other side, I have something that says water out. And I'm going to take this tube that I was using earlier. I'm going to hook that onto the water out. Pulling on a little bit, so we're going to move it this way just a little bit. Okay. Yeah. Got two back up there. All right, so I got that hooked up. Now I have run water and cleaner through this as well. But on one side you're going to see that it says wort in, on the other side it says wort out. Okay? So at some point when we are ready, we are going to take and run our wort down through our pump, out of our pump, into the chiller, and then back up into the kettle. So on the wort out, we're going to unhook this guy. Probably should have used a little rag there. All right, so we got the wort coming out. All right, last but not least, we're then going to set up a Another one that will go from the exit there and up into the wort in. And got a tube here. A little sanitizer in there just for the fun of it, just to get it a little bit in case there's something in there. Shouldn't be. But I'm actually not going to hook this one up. Let's make sure this actually is going to reach. Yeah, it will. Quite yet. Because a lot of times the very first stuff that you run through, there could be some stuff still in that plate chiller. You know, could be just a little bit of grains or who knows what in there. And so I'm going to capture that stuff in my pitcher before we get to that point. But let's take a look at how much time we have left. 8 minutes on that. We don't need to run it through there for 8 minutes, so that's fine. All right, let's talk a little bit about oxygen. Beer and oxygen do not mix. You ever wonder why when you go to a keg party and the beer just tastes bad? Probably because the keg that they used the weekend before, and they use a hand pump that just pushes oxygen into the keg, which then just forces the liquid up and out. But what it's also doing is forcing oxygen into the beer, and that's causing the beer to spoil, okay? Oxygen and beer are not good for each other. You want to try and minimize any amount of oxygen touching your beer, being in your glass, and you putting it in your mouth. Now, that said, there is a point in the beer process where oxygen is good, and that is giving the yeast something to eat, right? It gives it just a little bit extra. So I'm going to use some pure oxygen that comes out of this little red canister, and we're going to push that down into our beer when we get it into the conical fermenter. But once everything passes the plate chiller, it needs to be absolutely sanitized, because there is no more boiling process to kill bugs, right? Little microbes that are living wherever. So everything that's going to go into there needs to sit in this sanitizing solution that I've got in a bucket right here. I got this fill of sanitizing solution. So all of my tubes that I've got that are going to go for pushing the beer from the end of the plate chiller into the conical, they're going to be sitting in sanitizer, and we'll drain them. And we'll do the same thing with our, where we'll take a little bit, put it in the pitcher, stop it, then transfer it over there. I haven't done a 10-gallon batch of beer in a little while, so I am going to have the conical up in the fridge. Usually when I do a 5-gallon, I just keep it on the ground, and then I just lift with my legs, put it in the fridge. But I don't know if I can get 10 gallons of beer myself up into that fridge without making a complete buffoon and like having it fall on me. So we'll see how that goes. I'll be right back. I'm going to get my oxygenating kit, which is right out here. For those of you that are watching that like cycling, you might be someone who identifies with buying new bike parts, gadgets, for instance. Well, that's what homebrewing is all about, gadgets. All right, so this is my oxygenating wand, a little plastic bag on it. But basically it's got a small little stone which has really tiny little pores in it. So as the oxygen shoots into there, the pores then push the oxygen out, really disperse it, and really packs a punch. All right, so let's just get that piece down in there. My morning cool air is starting to go away with the boil process. Let's take a look at the boil. We're down to, it says 8 minutes still. Oh, there it goes, 4.5 minutes. Just like that. About last time we looked at it was 8 minutes. Eric Oftedall's out there. Sorry I wasn't paying attention to my Facebook comments here. Yeah, better watch out for the Environmental Protection Agency. There's a couple people that do zero waste brewing. I think it's a pretty cool idea because they are, you know, they're catching all of their wastewater. I've seen them. They have these brew stands that have these huge PVC pipes underneath all of the areas that they might capture water. I will say, outside of the plate chiller being something that I could most certainly try and capture and use in a rain barrel, I probably do use about 10 gallons of water extra for cleaning, and that's probably more than I should be using. And I probably should be trying to capture that water to use. It would be easy to put into a rain garden after it cools off. All right. Alright, now there's always a part about making sure that all valves are closed on a brew valve system, on a valve system. Because when you open this up, you want to know exactly where stuff is going to end up going. So it's going to come out of the bottom, go into here, go up to here, go up to there, go up to there. Alright, 2 minutes left. I'm going to start running the pump. No, I don't have to. I can just let it finish off. It's going to beep in my ear like crazy. The big countdown. Whew. Get my pitcher. Alexa, start work pump. Said it wrong.
Okay.
No. All right, that looks more like beer. What to say it anyway. Oh, I'm singing out loud. Sorry, folks. Alright, I'm going to hit all stop so I don't have to actually hear the sound of that. And we'll get all of our cameras back up. Alexa, start work pump.
Okay.
Alright, so now we are starting to circulate just a little bit of our wort. We're going to get what's called a whirlpool. We talked a little bit about that earlier. And this is going to circle things up. And anytime that you've done a whirlpool, maybe in your kid's pool like I do, all of a sudden any sand or maybe a little bit of stuff that's in your pool goes into the middle. And that's what's going to happen in here. All the trube, which is the kind of junk that has gotten from the mash tun into my boil kettle, along with any of that hop material, is going to start moving towards the middle. So then when I start draining my kettle, hopefully I can leave a fair amount of that behind, because it's not really necessarily stuff you need in your beer. That said, my conical fermenter is one that has a conical shape, so all the heavy materials are going to fall to the bottom, and then I've got a small jar at the bottom that I can actually drain all that junk into right away, clean it out, put the jar back on, continue to do it like that. All right, so we are just moving on with our setup here. I'm going to actually go ahead and turn on some water. And let's take a look at what that is doing from a standpoint of the temperatures. All right, so we're at 200 degrees, and now we'll start to see that this is going to start to drop fairly quickly. That's going down a lot faster than if it was just on its own. And if we look at the overhead camera, you can see it's not very fast, but it is starting to swirl. It takes a little bit of time for my system to really get crack-a-lackin'. Let's take a look. Now we're dropped down to 180 degrees. But you have to remember, we're recirculating up into the kettle, so it's hot water, so it's going back in. When I get down to about 160, I'm going to turn off the water. We'll let it settle for a moment while I get this ready to go into the fermenter. Last but not least, we got to make sure we add our yeast at the very end. Let's get some stuff out of the way just to make it easier. All right. We'll turn the water off, save some water. We'll let that finalize there. Alexa, stop work pump. You say it wrong. Alexa, turn off work pump.
Okay.
All right. Shut that. I can turn off my fan now. All right. If anybody's interested in making beer and learning more about the process, reach out to me. You can come over someday and hang out. All right, so I got the door open here. I do not have the thing plugged in. I am going to then undo some of these latches. And that's ready for that. All right. Take the lid out. Put the lid in here. I don't know if I can... I don't know if I want to do that. I'm going to do it. We're going to sanitize one of these filters. Poked me. All right, so we got that. Sanitized here. And again, everything that's now going into that fermenter over there needs to be sanitized. All right, so that is sanitized. So that I'm going to put like this. I'm going to take the risk of actually tilting my beer. I think I can do this with 10 gallons in there. We'll see. All right, let's get this out of the way. Now we're just getting all of our hoses, make sure they did get good sanitation. Okay. So again, not concerned about the outside portion of the whole device, but I am very concerned about this one's tough. Oof, it's not going on. I trust that. I don't know if this is going to necessarily be as long as I would like it to be. Little dilemma. Grab a different hose. Maybe it's just that darn side. It's tough. You want you BMX guys with your forearm strength. All right, got that on there fine. Whew. Now I want to kind of keep that up a little bit. I'm going to move this right about here and go ahead and open this up again. Alexa, turn on work pump.
Okay.
All right. Oh boy. This is not my greatest moment. I need to get a longer hose. But we're just going to get it done. Got to get the water running again. And now I'm stuck. Turn the water off. Just in case. Oh, gotta be kidding me. Oh no. Alright, gotta get a longer hose. I have a longer hose, but didn't want to hook up to that thing. Alright, so we're just filling the fermenter now. Definitely second guessing why I added that filter on there. There's not a lot of stuff in here that was kind of pointless. It's probably going to come back to bite me. But, trying new things. And I don't like that I can't actually go over and see what's going on. If I could just get this thing to clamp. Don't trust that necessarily. Do trust that. That's pretty sturdy. Let's try this. See if we can give you a sneak peek. I don't know if it's bright enough. A little dark. How are we doing on time? 1:15? Not bad. Alright, we're starting to get a little lower in the old boil kettle. See if you can see that. We'll give you the mobile camera view. See that chunk of stuff that's kind of stuck in the middle there, right? That's what I was talking about with the whirlpool, where you start to spin it and all the junk that's in the middle ends up going down in the side. Now, if I let it go, it's going to continue to go, and I'd say, like, at this point, I just don't really think, like, the amount of beer that we're getting now is all that fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and stop the process right there. And this is where things always get just a little bit messy. Because, actually, I've got a fair amount of beer in this hose that I'm going to actually push into there. And I'm going to do that by just taking my radiator clamp tubing and I'm going to clamp it off right here. I'm going to get that around. Alexa, stop work pump. Alexa, turn off work pump.
Okay.
We can turn all these valves shut for now. And remind me that I do have my water running over here, which is wasteful. Let's get that turned off there. All right. Okay, so we've got that in there. I'm going to now attempt what I talked about, which was pulling this out. Okay, so it caught a little bit, was not worth it. Put that in there. Now, let's rehook that up, give everybody a shot of what we ended up with. Hard to see, but I'm going to call this about 9 gallons of beer, which is a gallon less than what I was expecting. Normally, when I'm to get 10 gallons of beer, because I know that I'm inefficient in leaving behind stuff, you know, that was too much. Oh, sorry. I know that I'm behind leaving, you know, this was too much waste. I shouldn't have wasted that much beer there, but you can see all the junk that's down at the bottom. Kept that out of the beer. There's beer left behind in the kettle. There was some beer left behind in the tubing. Generally, I will make a batch of beer that's supposedly going to come out at 11 gallons, knowing that if I put 11 gallons in, I'll probably get about 10 in the fermenter. I haven't done a 10-gallon batch in a while, and the way that I brewed this one was called no sparge. So I actually had all my grains and my water, and I was just a little nervous about making sure I had enough room. I had plenty, by the way. I could have easily done it the way I normally do it. Note for self in the future that I can absolutely do that. All right, well, we don't want to leave this thing open for too long. Let's go ahead and get that oxygen in there. So, oxygen, highly flammable. Making sure you don't put a propane thing on there. These actually spin on the opposite direction of a acetylene torch. And got this thing plenty of time in the sanitizer. Just get some of that tubing down in there too, just a little bit extra. Spritz that around a little bit. All right. All right. So we just got to drop that down in there just below there. Alexa, start a timer 30 seconds.
30 seconds, starting now.
I can see it doing it. Alexa, stop timer. All right, this is our yeast. It's been swirling around on there. I do know, though, that there's a stir bar in the bottom. It's a little tiny magnetic bar. I'm going to find that stir bar, attach my magnet to the bottom. Now, again, I'll blame live streaming, though that's probably not the real reason. Technically, I should have taken this off of the stir plate probably about an hour ago and just put it over in my refrigerator to cool down. And what that does is help separate all of the yeast. And you can almost see it. I'll try and show you. It's doing it on its own. See how the yeast is down at the bottom? And you've got all of this wort at the top. Now, you don't necessarily need to put that wort in there. It's not like the wort that you just made has nothing to do with it. Now, it's not a ton, so I could definitely just throw this all in there, but I think I will just kind of let this one settle a little bit. I've got a ton of yeast down in there, and I'm just going to pour off just a little bit of it. All right, that's good. Now I'm just going to give it a swirl. Mix that yeast back up with it. I'm going to give the lip just a little bit of a rinse off the top there. And down. Oh, are you kidding me? Oh. Somewhere along the line, when I was showing everybody, the magnet fell off the bottom. The stir bar just went into the drink. Oh well, it's not the end of the world. it will fall out the bottom at some point, I'm sure. All right, so now I've got my little handy dandy hydrometer as well going. So that's been soaking away over here in the sanitizer. And we're going to go ahead and drop that in. Then we're going to grab our lid, which I'd already sanitized once before, but we're going to give it a couple more spritzes. Just to make sure it is good to go. Give it a shake. All right. We'll put that up on top of here. And we'll start shutting her down. All right. A few more in the back that are hard to get to. All right. We're plugged up there. Now I just need to find my water bottle, which I'm not sure where I put. Might be out here. Might have to make a new one. Why do you care about your water bottle, Scott? Well, my water bottle I use. Question is, do I have any more things in here? I don't know if I do. Got one of these. Drop that in there. Whew. Grab another O-ring. Oh, now I found one in there, of course. Where did that thing I just put in there go? No, that's not it. Come on. Why does everything have to be so murky in here? I can't see. Why didn't I just put it in the corner like I should have? All right, found it. So this device is going to show me the pressure inside the vessel. I use that later on when I am pushing the beer out of the keg. But it also is going to allow the CO2 that's in here to release through this tube, which I'll connect up to another bucket of sanitizer. So I'm going to take that off, put our sanitized thing on there. Put that on like so. And lock that on like so. Let's get my old cell phone plugged in. It's probably, battery's probably dead. Yep. Get that charging up. All right. Well, folks, for all of you that are still out there watching online, the beer is in here. I will post a link on my Facebook page that shows you the graph that shows you how it turns into beer. It's a pretty cool little deal. I'll send that out. But other than that, appreciate you joining me. We are all set. The wind is now starting to move through the garage, which feels great. All I have left to do now is clean, 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 and that is not a lot of fun to watch. Then again, I'm not sure if home brewing is a lot of fun to watch, but I appreciate you all for joining me. And with that, I say, talk to you next time. Maybe not.